scary when you read certain reports. A food company being caught with contamination in its kitchen, a investment services firm, doing back channeling work, another construction company having very bad engineering practices, a pharmaceutical company not practicing the right kind of manufacturing practices. Then there are these conversations that a lot of us have. Like, I got a call the other day from a long-standing coachee, and he's a very senior person in an organization. He was promised a global position, and then suddenly, when the announcement went out, he saw another individual's name go out in the announcement and no mention of him. And when he started trying to get an answer, he didn't get an answer. Or the other day, I was having a conversation with another very senior colleague where he mentioned of people doing large-scale fraud in an organization both of us knew, and this large-scale fraud was being done by people in the mid-management who had already got very heavy targets on their head. So out there in organization after organizations, ethics is a significant challenge. Practicing values is a significant challenge. And I raise a question to all of you, that what is really responsible for some of this? And we need to give that answer, because while we may say that ethical conversations, value conversations, etc., is something that we need to focus on, we need to train people, but there's something else which is an underlying problem in a lot of organizations, and it is the hurry injunction. We are living in a generation, or we are living in multiple generations at the workplace today, in the society today, where all of us seem to have this hustle mindset, this hurry mindset, wanting to do things which can happen in only in 2 years, 3 years, in 3 months or 2 months, and wanting to launch products faster and get revenue faster, etc. So remember that hurry can create a lot of challenges for a lot of people, because when you're rallying your troops, when you're running a large organization, the faster you run, the lesser you are able to look behind you and over your shoulders at who's following you and what are your followers doing. I remember this Sant Kabir said this so beautifully many decades, centuries back, that धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए माली सींचे सौगड़ा ऋतु आवे फल होए. So for those of you who need a transliteration, that literally means, when he says "dhire dhire re mana," to the mind, to the internal consciousness, he's saying that "dhire dhire re mana," that everything happens slowly. Mari siche sogada, which means even if the gardener were to water the plant 100 times, ritu ave far hoye, which means it's only when the season comes, the time comes for the plant, the shrub, to bear fruit or flower, that's when it'll happen. So respecting science, respecting natural laws, respecting aspects of quality, respecting aspects of good manufacturing practices, respecting standards in the industry. Responsible leader will do all of these things. So ask yourselves, are you being a responsible leader when you're asking people to hurry up and not giving it time? Somebody says, I'm going to take 3 months to do it. You shoot off your hips by saying, can we get this done in 1 month? Why? What's the science behind that? So if you don't have a science, a logic, a rationale, then you are working in an anti-ethic and anti-value way. So my encouragement to all of you, the solution is in a few simple steps. Number one, in our organization, as a responsible leader, we must focus on deep conversations on the values of the organization. Let those words not just be some marquees sitting on the walls or danglers. Let's speak about that value or those values, and let's speak about how to operationalize those values. Look at the mission, the vision. What is the ethical framework with which that needs to be lived? Now, finance is a domain that brings a lot of ethical standards. Do we adhere to all of those? But just like finance, there are so many other fields where there may be standards. Some may not have, but are we creating those standards for our organization to work with? Do we help our troops understand what's the tune to march to? So that's where processes are going to be very important. And along with the processes, the documentation about what's the right way to do things. How do we decide what's right? So in our organizations, the conversation needs to be, how do we decide what's right? Then what is right, and then are we doing what we need to do in a right way? And that's the way that needs to come. So ethics and values, that brings effectiveness, and that needs to bring the efficiencies in the organization. Get that conversation set going. Now, to get that conversation set going, you may also benchmark several organizations which have been, really, really anchored in value systems. They have fought off the industries. Now, there are enough names out there. I don't want to bias you by giving you one or two names from a certain industry, because if I tell you something, you'll say, oh, they are not from my industry, or they are not services, they are manufacturing. So I'm going to refrain from that. I can assure you of this. Whether it is energy, whether it is pharma, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's consumer goods, whether it is NGOs, whether it is government institutions, today in this world, spread across the world, there are sufficient examples of ethical organizations. Well, and I hope those stay ethically classified, because we have also been discovering of several organizations which have later on shown that there was muck hidden under, but I'm hoping that. So please do your research. Please put your energies into finding these examples. They are very important. So get the conversation in your organizations going around ethics and value. It's very important, so that from there you can create a no excuses culture by having the right intent and clarity to ensure that consumers get their right, employees get their right, and stakeholders get their rights. And that triangle is very important for us to satisfy. We cannot have an organization where employee rights are taken care of, but our consumer and stakeholder rights are not taken care of. You cannot have an organization where only the stakeholder rights are taken care of, but consumer rights are not taken care of. I wrote to a bunch of founders and supposedly good leaders, and I've spoken to some of them several years back when they were starting their company. Today, their frontline employees are really suffering. But some of these leaders sitting on top of the ivory tower now that they've got several rounds of funding and they've expanded in several areas, they're not paying any attention at all to the ground level. They are in their process to come to an IPO and cash out and all that stuff that typically happens. Why does this happen again and again? That leaders, as they climb the ivory tower, they become insensitive towards consumers and employees. Why do they only have stakeholder interests or financial interests in their mind? Think about this. These are important things for you to think through, and it boils around to one, definitely the hurry thing. And because of the hurry, you're not focusing on the ethics and the value systems in the organization. So clarify, have conversations, ensure that you put in the right kind of structures that brings fairness and compassion into the organization. And from there, when you're running the organization, yes, you will have a lot of difficult decisions to make. There are times there will be financial restraints, economic restraints, there will be supply chain issues, there could be product, labor issues. There are times when you'll need to shut shop in certain places and go other places. So you will need to possibly even do layoffs, etc. Then that happens. If you have an established conversation on ethics and values, it becomes easier for you to have open discussions in the organization. Start a public conversation, and that conversation and that connection that you have with the larger masses will also help you make justifiable decisions in public eye. Bring logic that is verifiable in the public eye. Show people that you are not biased, and literally you will not that you're not favoring anyone. There are people, there are individuals, there are teams which want to protect or preserve those few. And when we do these things, there will be challenges. So remember, if you're an ethical leader, if you're a value-oriented leader, i.e. you are a responsible leader, if you're a responsible leader, you will need to make difficult decisions, make them in the public eye. And if your followers are really loyal, sensible, ethical, value-oriented, responsible leaders themselves, they will understand those difficult decisions. And that's the tightrope that you need to learn to walk as a leader. So hope you do something about this immediately and start focusing on this consistently, so that you can build an environment of ethics and value around you. It is an important ladder that you need to place, firm up, and climb in your career if you really want to be a sustainable, recognized leader.